Hi again. So I just got a question from someone about Kitchari, and instead of writing a whole thing, I thought I would just come here and describe what Kitchari is and how it can be used, and also how it's often misused because it's called an Ayurvedic food. So Kitchari just means like a mixture of things that are kind of put together. But what we know of as Kitchari is usually like a rice dish mixed with a lentil. So, as we've been talking about today, um, we have discussed how the way something is prepared changes its qualities. So, rice itself is inherently light, it's dry, it's a little bit rough. It's still a grain, so it builds tissue, but it's really easy to digest, and this is often why it's used, because it builds tissue, but it doesn't clog the system. And it's often made with a mung dal. Mung dal is like a kind of lentil that's also pretty rough, pretty dry, pretty light, and it's astringent. So also technically like a really easy food to digest if spiced properly. However, it's still a legume, so it's still relatively heavy, and rice is still a grain, so it's relatively heavy. It's kind of a complete meal is what it's described as, which it can be. A lot of meals are rice and beans, from all over the world. So this is just an example of rice and beans. So you can change the rice, you could change the grain, you can change the lentil, you can change the bean, and all of those things are going to have different qualities like we talked about today with the spices, and some of the other foods and activities that we were describing. So if you cook them separately, so if you cook rice separately and you cook dal or your beans separately and then mix them together, they're going to be lighter because they're going to maintain their own identities more. We didn't actually get into this. I thought I put it in there, but I guess I didn't. So there's something called a samskara. Samskara, a lot of people know this from yoga, is like a repeated pattern. So when food is cooked together, it gains a new samskara. The qualities of one substance are then put into the qualities of another substance, and they mix, and it basically makes a third substance. So when we cook rice and then we separately cook dal or beans in their own spices and in their own water, and then mix them together, they're not going to have a shared samskara, which means they'll maintain their own identities, which sometimes makes them lighter. When we cook kitchari, like the way we often cook it, we cook the rice and the dal mixed together. It gets very thick, if you've made it, and very heavy. And it can be a bit shundi, so it can cause secretions to come, and therefore makes it really, really hard to digest. So kitchari is light relative to like a cracker, but it's not actually light. And so if we eat too much of it, it can be very, very sticky, right? So look at your food when you cook it. And if it looks drier, then it's going to be drier. And if it looks sticky outside, it's definitely going to be sticky inside. So you can also play with how you cook your food. So if you cook your food in a pot and you cover it, and you use steam to cook it, there's going to be more water element in your food. So if you don't want more water in your food, like you're someone who's dealing with swelling or something, and you don't put spices that decrease swelling in that water to make like an herbal tea that you're basically cooking your food in, it's going to do that to your body. If you want to put more dryness in the food because you're feeling a little bit heavy and stuck, you could cook your food, your rice, your dal with the top off, or your other vegetables with the top off, which will allow the steam to evaporate, and therefore the substance will be drier. You could also think about cooking your food in the oven, which will make it even more dry, right? Or on a grill, which will make it super dry. So just think about how we cook food, because it will change the way it's digested. For example, this is way longer but it always happens this way. So like in the summer in the United States, people love to barbecue. Barbecuing is really hot and really dry. What's the summer? Really hot and really dry. And then the stuff that we often put on the barbecue is also really hot, like ketchup, mustard, vinegary, right? And barbecue sauce, vinegary, spicy. So actually like the barbecue, and then we usually are drinking beer or alcohol or something in the hot sun, or kombucha or whatever in the hot sun. And so we're actually aggravating the qualities of the summer, because the barbecue food and drink is like essentially the same as the season. So just because we do it and it's fun, like we were talking about earlier, doesn't mean it's good for us. So in terms of Kitchari, a Kitchari cleanse is not really an amazing cleanse, because it's really, really dense to digest. So you want to, again, like just because it's Ayurvedic doesn't mean it's Ayurvedic, right? People just slap the Ayurvedic label on stuff all the time, and it's not. So just because it's mentioned in Ayurveda doesn't mean it's Ayurvedic for you, because Ayurveda requires yukti, requires your own intelligence. And so if you were put on a Kitchari cleanse, this question came because a friend's friend was put on a Kitchari cleanse and felt awful after. And it's because it's really, really dense. And if it's not well spiced, like your body's going to be like, cool, what are we supposed to do with this lump? Where do we put this lump? So use spices to tell your body where to put the lump and how to put the lump. And if your food is really, really thick and sticky, then you need to make sure that your spices that you're using are going to break that down. So have pungency, have lightness, have maybe some roughness in them, according to that list that you're receiving now. So that's something to think about. Also, Kitchari comes from this process called Samskara. So Samskara is like the krama, the order of basically bringing food back into the diet after a cleanse. And this is actually really wonderful now, because we're moving into cold and cough season, also COVID, and also the vaccine sometimes causes these like symptoms of a fever disorder. So my teacher recommended this as well. Like if you're cold, if you get sick, if you take the vaccine, if you have had COVID, etc., life stuff, treat your digestion like it's a baby, because when we get sick, our digestive fire collapses. And this is where Samskara can be really useful. Instead of like getting sick and not feeling hungry, but then going out and eating Virudahar or Virudavihar, or eating apatyas, things that at the time in their taking block the path, are apatya, are contrary to the path of digestion. They will cause disorder, even if they're from the most organic market or they're grown by your grandmother. They'll still be apatya. So this is where Kitchari comes from. So we start when we are moving, like this is usually after panchakarma, because after panchakarma, the digestive system is really taxed. And we're trying to build the digestive fire after removing dosha. For those of you who are aware of panchakarma, if not, send me questions. I don't want to make this video too long for you. So what happens is we have to build the digestion slowly, because if there's no fire and we put a regular diet on top of it, we destroy the fire, we create and we create dosha again when we just cleaned the body out with the panchakarma, or you were sick, so your body cleaned itself out through the process of immunity and now is trying to rebuild, and then you smush it again. So this is where Kitchari fits. So usually what we'll do is it starts with manda, then becomes peya, then vilepi, and then usually Kitchari. So manda is like a rice gruel. So it's like 1 part rice and 16 parts water, and you actually are just drinking the water, and it's teeny tiny bit spiced sometimes. Usually in Samskara it goes like unspiced spice, and then as we move up into more dense foods, again unspiced spice, just because the digestion is really sensitive. You don't have to do the unspiced thing if you're just sick, but this is how panchakarma works. So you'll start with the manda, and you'll have the like rice water, and you'll drink the spiced rice water, and then you'll drink that with hunger, because you're usually not that hungry at this time. You're starting to build your agni, and then you'll move to peya, which is a little bit more, a little less water. I believe it's 1 to 8 or 1 to 6. And then you'll drink that, and you can have a little bit of the rice. And then you move to vilepi, which is the mung version of the rice water. So you'll make mung broth, mung dal broth, with 1 part the bean, the lentil, and then like 6 parts water. And then you'll drink the water, eat a little bit of the lentil, and then you'll move toward, and vilepi is abhishandi, so it can cause secretions. And then you'll often move to Kitchari, which is like basically just means a grain and a dal. A grain and a dal together, or a grain and a lentil together. You can cook them separately, like I described, which will have different qualities than cooking them together. And you're also not supposed to eat that much. So You're supposed to eat like 1 or 2 handfuls of food at a time. Often we're overeating anyway. Like going out to eat, often we're overfed anyway. So that's also something to consider with Kitchari, is like you might not need so much, and better to eat according to digestion. There are many really lovely ways to do cleansing. I also really like us to be mindful of that word, because what are we cleansing? And why do we need it, right? Think of it like removing water or removing heat. Like, what are you trying to cleanse? Because there's nothing inherently wrong with your body, and it needs form. It needs substance. It needs to be visible, right? You don't want to become karshita, become completely wasted from over cleansing, because it's a psychological thing that makes us feel like there's something inherently wrong with us, which there is not. So, so that's Kitchari. How it's spiced will change it. Often people will put ghee in the Kitchari, which is wonderful, but too much ghee is going to be very heavy. And if you don't have satmya for Kitchari, like you weren't born eating it, and then you go on a cleanse, it's going to be pretty heavy for you. It'll be an apatya, so it'll be difficult for you to digest, even though it's good for you. So this again is why we really should apply yukti to it. If you want to put yourself on a seasonal cleanse, there's so many good ones out there. One is a teacher of mine named Lilavati from Aroma Bliss, runs one in the spring, which I think is over, and there's one in the fall. If you need help with a diet, please call me and we can make a consultation to like help you have a diet, or if you want to put together a cleanse for a particular reason, for a particular goal, we can build that together. Because or you can apply the information that you learned in this program today to your goals, and you'll probably be able to figure it out for sure. There is no quick fix to health. That's the bummer. And anyone who's promising you that is lying, because health is a cumulative experience. Like I was saying in a lot of the advertising for this course, health is a cumulative experience, and it's something to be experienced. It's not static. We're all built to experience health, but it's something that comes from how you put it into your life, and nothing can do it for you. But Yogavahi, that's what this company is kind of about. Like, my job is to help you bring forth that health, or help you uncover that and then amplify it in your own life. This is why I love Ayurveda, because we work together, but you do it yourself. So yeah, that's Kitchari. That's my long answer. I could talk about this stuff all day. I find it completely fascinating, and I love it. Also, treat your body nicely. If you're menstruating, it's considered a cleanse. In itself is a cleanse. So don't exercise. Be aware that your digestion might change when you're having the cycle coming. Be mindful that if your cycle is really, really heavy or really long, you might want to make an appointment, but also like your diet, you might feel weaker, etc. So don't overeat at those times. Don't overeat salt. Don't overeat hot foods. You might be craving them. Just let your body kind of do its thing. And don't exercise during that time either, because your body is not super strong. Okay. Thank you so much for your time and for your attention. I hope this was interesting. If it caused questions to percolate, which I very much hope it did, please feel free to send them to me, email, DM, phone call, text message, whatever you got, use it, WhatsApp. Yeah, and if you want to schedule a consultation because this program has made you realize that there's some stuff that maybe you want to address in your life, stuff that's been ongoing and you want to address through food or herbs, or you want to kind of go over how to put together a proper cleanse for yourself. Again, cleanse meaning like you have a particular thing that's causing you suffering and you want to remove it, not because there's anything inherently dirty about you. Please send me a message or a call. Okay, thank you so much. Bye.